Um, Welcome on behalf of the Law Society of Nunavut to the first installment in our Mindful Lawyer series. And we're very pleased and grateful to have Paul Falvo with us here today to be talking about mindfulness. Again, this is the first in a series of continuing legal education presentations that we will be offering this spring. Um, and I'm sure Paul will add to this, but you can attend any and all of the
All of the
series.
series.
You don't have to attend all of them, but they are all available to you. Because this is lawyer wellness, I have been asked to make you aware of a couple of different options. Um, Paul has indicated that you are welcome to ask questions during the session, but if you are uncomfortable in any way, you want to preserve your confidentiality in asking a question, you can either wait until the end of the session, at which time we will turn the recording off and you can ask questions more without the prospect of being recorded. Or if you want to be completely anonymous, you can put your question in the chat just to me, and then I can pose the question without attributing it. So without further ado, thank you again to Paul and welcome everyone, and I will turn over the floor to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Welcome, everyone. And we should mention, too, that for a small extra charge, we will attribute your strange question to someone else. Um, Welcome to this. We did this series, I think it was 2022, and it was well attended. And I thought, wow, that's because people were really drawn to me as a meditation guy. And then I realized that actually people were drawn to getting 1 hour of wellness CLE credit for free. But regardless, I'm glad you're here. One thing I would say is that I'm staring out at a sea of black rectangles, and I know that's pretty normal because when I attend CLEs, I've usually got my camera off, and some people even like sometimes the person talking even prefers that because it's less distracting. But for this, if you're willing to put your camera on, it I think it helps to sort of make to build community if we can see each other because it is wellness. It's not a legal education, it's wellness. So if you're willing to put your camera on at this or at future sessions for all or part of the session, please consider doing that. But either way, I'm here. Um, Many of you know me. I practiced law well, I should say present tense I practiced law in the NWT and in Nunavut. I slipped into past tense there because I'm not doing as much active frontline stuff as I used to. This, as Rebecca has said, is one of 3 sessions. And if you are just signed up for this one, there is one next Tuesday and the Tuesday after that. So you can sign up for those individually. And if you have any questions about that, you can email Rebecca or me. And without further housekeeping, I'll get to the topic, which is mindfulness. The what, the why, and the how of mindfulness. And I think that mindfulness is something that probably, well, it's a bit like running. Nowadays there's running everywhere you look, there's events, there's stores, but some of us are old enough to remember when running or jogging, as it was often called, was kind of a weird thing that was just done by a few people, and it became really mainstream. And it's a bit like that with mindfulness because it seems like everywhere you look now, whether it's on social media or even posters, sometimes email, you see offers and admonitions on how to live. And if you'll just get this bullet journal, your life is going to be amazing and perfect, and your procrastination will disappear, or at least get this app, and this app will take care of that. And a lot of times, mindfulness is is tossed around the word as part of that. It's kind of like saying something is natural or green. And I guess the truth is there's a lot of different ways of doing things. I'm going to talk about mindfulness and also its companion meditation, there's a lot of different ways of meditating. And to use the running analogy again, it's just like there's a lot of different ways of exercising. You know, if you go to the gym, you'll see some people using free weights, some people are using machines, some people are on the track, some people aren't there at all. And with the with mindfulness and meditation, there are different ways of doing it. And so I'm not going to diss, I'll try not to diss any particular ways, but I'm going to show you something that works for me. By way of a bit further background, before I moved north, I started practicing law in Nova Scotia, and I was in Halifax, which has a surprisingly high Buddhist population. Surprisingly high for an East Coast port city. There's all these Buddhists, and people in Halifax were called Haligonians. So somebody came up with the term Buddhagolians for the Buddhists in Halifax. But it was because there was a Tibetan teacher who had moved there and set up his headquarters, and a lot of his people came with him from like from Colorado, where they'd been, and so Halifax had this strange influx of Buddhism and meditation, and I got drawn into it. I saw posters. I took a how to meditate class, and I think I immediately dropped it. Um, I don't think I maintained any kind of a meditation practice, but it for some reason it wouldn't go away from my mind. I might have forgot about the karate lessons. I might have forgot about a lot of different diets or things I might have tried, but for some reason meditation it kept stayed in my ear or in my head. And so fast forward many years, I'm in Yellowknife, and I picked it up again then because by then we had like online classes or apps and things we could do, and I got back into it, and it made it more of a habit. And I think it's something that helps me. I think it helps me in practice of law, but just in life in general. And sticking with the analogy of running or exercise, sometimes I think maybe I'm a bad example. Like maybe I'm the wrong person to be standing up here talking about it because I waste all kinds of time during my day. I get drawn into doom scrolling. I get upset about inconsequential trivialities. So, maybe I'm not, maybe there should be some Zen guru up here instead of me. But on the other hand, maybe I'm a good example because just like with exercise, I didn't start running because I was, bristling in muscle and had zero body fat. I started doing it because I wanted to improve, and same with the meditation. And I think something that's missing often from legal training or from life in general is that we get all the technical skills, we get specific knowledge about things, but we're not always given like the general guidance about how to live, or we find it in other places. We get examples from our parents, whether they're good or bad examples, from our friends, people we associate with, social clubs, church, workplace, wherever people congregate. But there's not always a lot of general guidance on just how to get through life. And since I've mentioned Buddhism, I've mentioned church, I should give a disclaimer to say that the roots of what I am talking about are Buddhist, and that's what a lot of what I have been taught is. But you, by no means, you do not have to be. Whatever whatever you were when you logged in today, if you were Jewish, Scientologist, an atheist, whatever, I'm reasonably confident you still will be when you leave. There is no religious requirement, even though it is often taught with Buddhism. Other Other religions do it too. For example, the very first meditation I ever did was actually as part of a Christian group that I was part of in university. So the meditation is not confined to any one group or people, but it's a tool. I think it's like exercise in it. You could compare it to something like push-ups, push-ups, because push-ups are kind of useless on their own. If you find yourself in a burning building or you're trying to get away from somebody that's chasing you, you're not going to drop and do push-ups. They're kind of useless. But if you do push-ups consistently in your life, if you have a training regimen, you build up your strength, and it may help you in the future physically or and mentally because there's this link between you've heard of the mind body connection. There's a link there. And so I'd say meditation is kind of useless on its own. There's no point in being a good meditator per se, but it's something that builds up strength, mental strength, and resiliency, and I think greater awareness. One definition of mindfulness that I heard recently is that mindfulness is bringing your attention to the present moment and noticing what arises without judgment or bias and with compassion and curiosity. Or maybe if you're not doing it without judgment or bias, you're at least noticing the judgment and bias or becoming more aware of it because I think it's impossible to go through life without judgment and bias. I mean, we have that, it's built into us. But with training, we can start to be aware of it more. And noticing can make a lot of difference. We go through a lot of our lives without awareness. I mean, to tell you a stupid little story, yesterday I was walking my dog, and when we walk, I put a little red, orange collar on her, which has a Scotch light on it to help, cars see her. And we got back. She was in the yard. I was puttering around the yard, moving some wood or something, which again, I don't even remember, which is sort of part of the point. And then later I was looking, okay, I got to take her reflective collar off before I go back inside because she'll lose it or chew it or something. And I couldn't find it. And then I found it in my pocket. So either my brilliant husky took her own collar off and folded it and stuck it in my pocket, or more likely I just absent-mindedly did it and shoved it in there. And we go through a lot of life like that, like on autopilot. Like you drive from work to home and you don't remember anything that you saw along the way. And we get in autopilot too for our reactions to a lot of things. And you've probably noticed that it's easier to see other people than it is to really see yourself. Something else I read was, and this is from Mark Manson, who wrote a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Mark Manson wrote, as a general rule, we're all the world's worst observers of ourselves. When we're angry or jealous or upset, we're oftentimes the last ones to figure it out. And the only way to figure it out is to put cracks in our armor of certainty by consistently questioning how wrong we might be about ourselves. Now, I don't know if Mark Manson is into meditation, but to me, there's a link between all this stuff. So mindfulness is like being aware of right now, the present moment, which we often are not, But meditation is a mental, almost a physical exercise that helps us get there. And if it helps, I'll tell you some of what meditation is not. Um, Contrary to popular belief, it's not, at least in my opinion, it's not relaxation per se. Now, you might find it relaxing, kind of just like you might find it relaxing to go for a swim or to go to the gym. You might feel relaxed because you've taken your mind off of, say, work. But at least the way that I'm going to show you is not a relaxation exercise per se. It's also not about positive vibes. You see the posters, positive vibes only, and I kind of cringe when I see that because I think there can be like a toxic positivity that everything has to be positive all the time. And that's a judgment already. Well, my reaction to it is a judgment, but also just being, calling things positive all the time is another kind of a judgment. And I'm not sure it's always helpful. I mean, sure, I'd rather be happy than angry most of the time, but feeling some kind of pressure that everything has to be positive all the time, I don't think that's helpful. The meditation technique that I'm going to show you is not going to be guided. It's a silent meditation. If you've got apps like Headspace or Insight Timer, they're full of guided meditations, for example, and they may be if those work for you, you know, you do you, like do what works for you. But I don't like them so much myself because if I listen to a guided meditation, it's like somebody's telling me a story, and it can be entertaining and distracting and take my mind off things, but I don't think it's really training my mind. It might relax me, distract me, but it's not really training. For the long, it might be good in the short term, but I think there are long-term benefits of silent meditation. Because when we do the silent meditation, we can get to know ourselves. And that's really the important thing. You are the most important person in the room for you. Another thing we're not going to do, because you often hear people say, well, I could never meditate because I can't stop thinking. I thought, well, good, because that means you're alive. I think we're thinking thoughts from before we're born until we die, or maybe after that as well. But we're not going to stop thinking. If you can figure out how to stop thinking, I don't know, you can write a book about that because I don't know anybody who can stop thinking. With meditation, we're not going to go into a trance. You're not going to get hypnotized. Um, and the way I do it, we're not even going to close our eyes. We're going to keep our eyes open. And that surprises people. So people often say, well, but it's easier with my eyes closed. And yeah, it is easier with your eyes closed. Kind of like push-ups are easier if you do them at the knee. But for, I think for a better experience, for better practice, keep your eyes open. Just like your ears will be open, just like all your senses will be active, because that's life. Like I said, we're not trying to be good. The goal is not to be a meditator. The goal is to learn to get through life. And in life, we see things, we hear things. So, in a roundabout way of saying, the meditation is about cultivating our awareness. It's like, an old turntable. and the record's always spinning and playing all day long. And when we meditate, we're taking the needle off of the turntable. The turntable keeps going, but we're going to take the needle off and we're just going to watch that platter spinning around. And why? Why would we do this? Well, I think it's good for our minds. I think it helps to build up resiliency. It helps us to be aware of ourselves. It helps us to be aware of the gap between stimulus and response so that we don't just live our lives in a reaction mode. And I think that in turn I think it has benefits. I think it can lead to greater contentment because we can be more aware of what we have and more gratitude. And we can be more aware of what really matters, and as well as more controlled, more calm in our responses. So it's not relaxation per se, but it can nudge us in that direction. And I have been talking about two different things, mindfulness and meditation. So it's like it's sort of like saying fitness and exercise. They're interrelated. You do one to help get to the other. I've been chattering for a while here. Before we go further, does anybody have any questions? You can either ask them, turn your mic off and ask them live, or put them in the chat. And you can ask the question and say you don't want your name attributed to it for the recording. And for $5, we'll attribute your question to Norma. Oh, no questions. All right. So I'll lead us through a short meditation. I'm having just told you that I don't use the guided meditations on Insight Timer. I'm going to open Insight Timer, but I'm going to have it on silent mode. Uh, and I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And nobody here is a prisoner. You don't have to do this, and you can stop at any time. We're not going anywhere. In fact, you can be eating lunch or whatever while I do it. I won't even know. But I encourage you to give it a try. And like I said, you can stop at any time. Like in my experience, I've never seen anybody have a bad reaction to meditation, but I have heard of it that when we stop distracting ourselves with all kinds of thoughts and chatter and we just sit still, that can be unnerving for some people, and depending on your background and experience. For some people, it can lead to sort of an emotional rising, and that on its face, that's okay. But if it's unsettling for you or uncomfortable, of course you can stop at any time. You just simply stop, drop the technique, and and it's something we can stay around and talk about. But to meditate, first of all, there's no magic in the posture. People traditionally would sit cross-legged on cushions. So if you happen to be sitting cross-legged on a cushion right now, that's fine. I don't know, but I suspect the reason it gets taught that way is because that was just how people used to sit. Like this, these are thousands of year old techniques. Most of us these days, though, we have chairs. So if you're in a chair, that's fine. I'm actually in a kneeling chair. You could be in a regular office chair. You could even be on a couch. That's fine. There's no magic in the posture. Like it's not like we have to assume some kind of lotus position and then everything's going to work. And if you don't, if you get it wrong, it doesn't work. It's not like that at all. I think we want to aim for a position that's not uncomfortable because if you're sitting in such a way that your back hurts, that's all you're going to think about. On the other hand, if you're sitting too comfortably, like if you're lying down or if you're slouched over in your couch, you might fall asleep. So the catchphrase I have is upright but not uptight. You can shake it out as you sit down because you may not even be aware of how much tension you have in your shoulders. But sit upright but not uptight. And a teacher of mine used to say, turn and face the wall. Sounds kind of ominous. You can turn and face the wall, or you can point yourself towards a door or something boring, um, whether that's my face on the screen or anything. I would just encourage you not to look at something that's moving and that's too exciting because, again, that may consume all your attention if you say you're watching if you got YouTube on. So face the wall or something boring. Keep your eyes open. I'm going to start the timer. And depending on Zoom settings, you may not hear the bell. So that was the bell. So the timer has started. And I'm going to keep an eye on the time. But you're sitting on a couch or in your chair. And you keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. All your senses are open. And just observe. Just watch whatever is moving. I mean, this is what cats do. They sit still and they watch what moves. But watch what moves not just in front of you, but watch what moves in your mind. Because our minds are like non-stop chatter. Thich Nhat Hanh said it was like radio non-stop chatter. Or it's like there's this movie. A movie is constantly playing out in your mind. For these 10 minutes, take yourself out of the movie, sit down in the theater, and just watch. Watch what your mind does. You're not going to stop thinking. I mentioned cats. If you're thinking about cats, just watch that. If you're thinking about a file, just observe that you're doing that. Observe what your mind does. And you don't have to stop doing it. I'm not asking you to stop doing it. I'm not asking you to fix anything. Like, there's nothing to correct or fix, but just be aware. You get caught up in some storyline or thinking about some weird thing you did 8 years ago. Just observe that and observe your own reaction to it. Anyway, I promise silence, so I will stop talking and we'll sit in silence for the next remaining minutes, and I'll watch the time. Just continue to observe whatever is going on around you and observe whatever is going on in your mind. And if you hear noises outside or coming through the computer, just observe them. They're just part of the experience, so just observe and observe your own reaction to them. That's the bell. Whether you hear it or not, that is the 10-minute timer. So please bring your practice to a close. I talked a whole lot before we started. Does anybody have questions or comments? Any questions or comments about the meditation that you want to share in front of your non-judgmental peers? Right. Did anybody have a transformative aha moment? Not to be judgmental, but I kind of hope not because I never do. It's not really like that. It's like if instead of meditating we all went running, if we all went and ran around the block, you probably wouldn't come back inside and feel that your abs, you suddenly had a six pack where you didn't before. You know, you know, you don't you don't transform yourself with one run. You don't transform yourself with one meditation. But I think that it's something that over time it you may see positive results. Question: I don't understand how it is meditation if you're sitting thinking about your files. I thought you were supposed to clear your mind. I could say there may be meditation practices where people clear their minds, but it's not how I was taught, and I don't know how to do that to clear my mind. It's a struggle for me to even focus on one thing. I don't know how to clear my mind. How is it meditation if you're still thinking about your files? Well, I'm not encouraging you to think about your files because if I said, okay, sit down and think about the last file you worked on, that would be something different. But it happens. It inevitably happens. Your thoughts are they're going to bubble up. You're going to think about something all the time. Um, 165,000 thoughts per day is what I heard from one study. That's how many thoughts we have running through our head. So that's going to include the 10 minutes that we're sitting here. And I would say that if if you stayed in your seat, if you did not get up and go make a sandwich, then you were meditating. Because that's what it is. It's running is putting one foot forward and moving through space, but you don't have to get a gold medal at the Olympics to be running. You don't have to have perfect technique to be running. And it's the same with meditation. If you sat there for all or some of that 10 minutes, you were meditating, even if your mind went elsewhere, because that's just what our minds do. But the difference is that we're working to be aware of where our minds go. Oh, I thought about my file. I thought about my grocery list. I thought about my roommate, whatever. Otherwise, those 10 minutes might go by and you wouldn't be aware of where your thoughts had been. And what I encourage you to do is to try this again tomorrow. It doesn't have to be for 10 minutes. It could be 5 or it could be 15 or 1 minute, whatever you got. Just sit somewhere reasonably quiet, sit still, sit symmetrically, and just observe of your own mind for however long you decide you're going to do it for. Set a timer on your phone. And if you do it, you could do it all week for 5 minutes a day. See how you feel about it. I think you'll know if it's something that don't expect any like rapid eureka transformation. But if you try it for 5 minutes a day for a week, see how you feel next week. See how you feel about it. We spend a lot of time, like one quote I heard was our head. Put your head where your feet are, and we often don't do that. Our heads are everywhere, and doing this kind of a practice over time can help us to have better focus. But I don't think you'll be perfect. Certainly hasn't worked for me. But I feel that I'm better off than if I wasn't doing this, put it that way. Just like I haven't won any Olympic medals for running, but I think I'm in better fitness because of my lumbering efforts at running. Are there any other questions? It's as complicated and as simple as being aware of what is happening right now. And as you've seen, there was no magic, uh, no instant transformation. But it is a practice, I think, that if you do it over time, can lead to better resiliency, contentment, focus, that sort of thing. I encourage you, like I said, to do about 5 minutes a day. Do it every day or do it every other day. Do it as much as you can remember to do. There is another session next Tuesday. I'll put my email in the chat. If you have questions, you can email me. So you can send your questions, comments, and threats. And my phone number, you can text me or call.
We do have a question
Oh, okay.
in the chat. The question was about if we are thinking about our files and have not cleared our minds, can you explain a bit more about how that is meditation?
Yeah, I think that's the one I answered. Um,
Okay, great. If you've already answered it, thanks. I just wanted to.
yeah, because your minds will go, our minds go places. It's what we do. But being aware that you were thinking about your files, maybe that's the difference. Any other questions? And does anybody want to ask any questions with the recording off? Maybe Rebecca, if you would turn the recording off, we can see if anyone still has questions.